So hi, comic book guys and gals. I'm Joe. Welcome to Anachronic Comics. I got my movie maven here, that special guy with all the movie knowledge, Dave Bratton. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing well, Joe. How are you?
That's good. So my number seven is actually the X-Men
Oh,
from 2000.
okay.
Okay. So again, you had this disappointing Batman Forever and
Yeah,
Batman and Robin.
yeah.
I have to say, I didn't even go to watch Batman and Robin in the movie. It was so
You made
bad.
the right decision.
Because
I
Batman,
did.
yeah, it was so bad. And then everything I read about Batman and Robin, I think I finally watched it on TV at some point in time, but here you
Right.
have, Bryan Singer coming in and
Hmm.
looking at really what the essence of the X-Men was,
Yeah.
in the comic books. And if you read the first one, if you read what Stan Lee has to say about them, he really was talking about discrimination, and in the 60s there was a lot of issues going on in this country, a lot
Hmm.
more than today, with respect to that. And he used them as kind of his way of saying, and he said it quite often in his soapbox, we all got to treat each other, nicely, we're all human beings, all this and that. He was very big on that, and he used the X-Men in the comic books to kind of demonstrate this type of thing.
Hi, heroes. This is Stan Lee coming at you. Want you to know Marvel has always been and always will be a reflection of the world right outside our window. That world may change and evolve, but the one thing that will never change is the way we tell our stories of heroism. Those stories have room for everyone, regardless of their race, gender, religion, or color of their skin. The only things we don't have room for are hatred, intolerance, and bigotry. We're all part of one big family, the human family, and we all come together in the body of Marvel.
I also think the people that they put in there, like Patrick Stewart as as
Yeah.
Professor Charles Xavier, was like, when I saw that, because I used to be a big Star Trek fan, I said,
Yeah.
"Wow, that actually
It
makes
was
sense to me.
fantastic.
That's
Yeah.
good." You know,
Yeah. Agreed.
And Hugh Jackman. I mean, I think he had some like crappy movies or something like that. I'd heard about him, but I didn't know what he was going to do. But he turned out to be great,
He was
a great
fantastic.
Wolverine, and
It broke
and
him. It
those
put him on the map.
yeah, those two characters were just fantastic with respect to that. You know, um, and the interesting thing I just found out about this, Hugh Jackman only was not the studio's original choice.
No.
Doug Ray Scott was,
Yes.
and he got hurt filming Mission Impossible 2, and he couldn't do it. And
Mission
so they
Impossible
picked up
2
Hugh
kept
Jackman.
filming. He couldn't get out of it. So they said, well, we've got to cast someone really quick. And they brought in Hugh Jackman. And he thought Wolverine was like a made up thing. He didn't
Yeah.
know it was a real creature. Like, and he's like, oh, I'll just act like a wolf. And he was acting kind of strange. And Bryan Singer's like, what are you doing? So, no, yeah, that's how green he was. And what a revelation he was, and how important he is, as he is. We'll get into some certain things. I think he's an iconic portrayal of an iconic character. Uh,
Right, and they took a risk. All right, they took a
yeah,
risk with this whole, mutant on mutant discrimination thing,
and it
and so
meant
forth, and
something
it
to everyone.
worked. And the budget, they weren't sure it was going to work, so the budget was only 75 million
Yes.
for
Yeah,
this, right?
yeah.
But it made 157 million domestically,
Hmm.
296 million worldwide, and the whole franchise. What was it? 13 movies, so 14, something like
Oh my
that.
gosh, I
They
can't.
made 13 movies, I think it was. They
Yeah,
made over $6 billion in
yeah,
those 13 movies, with some real clunkers in there too.
yeah. Oh,
So,
several.
so to me, that was significant because it showed you can have a lot of social issues
Yeah,
in movies. Do it again the right way. You got to have the correct writer. You got to have the correct director in there. Good story, and people can relate to it. They may disagree with it, they may not, but you can relate to it, and you can make money and have a good movie in that respect.
yeah.
So for those reasons, I put it at number seven.
And I'm going to jump in there. You were discussing how the comic books focused a lot. It was sort of Stan Lee's statement on prejudice and discrimination and
Right.
racism. When Bryan Singer did it in the early 2000s, it was statement on homophobia. and on the way gay people are treated. And you're right, that social commentary that says, hey, we're all people, we might be different,
Right.
but there's no reason to hate. There's no reason for prejudice. And those
Right.
things have no place in our society. You're right. I think that's great. And X-Men was an honorable mention on my list. It did not make my top 10. And after this conversation, you might be right, Joe. And I still feel good about the reasons why I have my other films, but I
Yeah.
think as a lawyer, you made your case, Joe. So
Well, I wrote a brief on it. So
evidently. All right. So where are we at now?
we're at number 6.
Okay. Well, my number 6 is Wonder Woman, and we've
We talked about it.
discussed that one. So what's
Okay.
your number 6?
My number 6 is the Avengers from 2012.
Ooh. I
Okay.
had this film much higher than you did.
Well, it's kind of funny because I actually had it lower.
Oh boy.
Yeah, well, you'll see what my higher ones are, I guess, and
Right. Yeah.
that
We're
plays into
probably
it.
going to reveal. Yeah. Well, your number 5 was my number 1, Joe.
Maybe,
It could be.
but let me go back. I mean, when the first time we heard about the Avengers Initiative was actually in the Iron Man film, right?
Hmm.
In the post-credits scene.
Yes.
And I remember everybody in the movie going, "Whoa!"
That's the nine.
And so we were waiting for this
You
movie.
were.
We were waiting for this movie. We were hopeful for this movie. And we really had nothing like that on the DC side. There was no hope of a Justice League at all at that point in
Yeah.
time.
Right.
This was 2012, right?
Yeah.
So, it was just before Man of Steel and kind of that, and the whole Zack Snyder thing.
Right.
So here, when we were taking a look at this, you had the Sony movies, the Fox movies, and so forth. So now here you have the Avengers, and they did it the right way. They had, was it 4? I guess they had 4 movies about single heroes, right?
Captain America,
Captain
Thor, Iron
Iron
Man,
Man, right?
Hulk.
Thor, and they built it up the
Yeah.
right way. And so when this came, it was important that it be successful. And yeah, it didn't make Spider-Man type of money and that type of stuff, but it did make basically the MCU. Because when that came out and it worked, all right. Yeah, you could say, well, Spider-Man kind of helped the MCU. Yeah, but that was really the key. All right. That movie was the key to everything else that came after it. Because then you have, and I'm not big on what the Marvel phases are, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you knew they were working towards something bigger, and then you actually saw kind of the Avengers, in other movies. And Captain America: Civil War was basically an Avengers movie in
Yeah.
some ways, with respect to
Yes,
that.
it was.
It's suddenly you were invested in this entire universe
Hmm.
because you knew no matter what went on, you would maybe see some other characters come in.
Yeah.
And I forget which post-credit scene it was, but the one that kind of made it for me, where I said, yeah, this is really kind of, I'm invested now in this MCU, in this universe,
Okay.
is, remember there was a post-credit scene where they were sitting around having like either
Shawarma.
coffee or drinking or something. I
Shawarma.
forget what it was, or lunch or something like that. To me, it was like, okay, now we also have lunch, we also
Yeah.
do this. It was great. And
Was.
each one of the characters, um, some more than others, you
Mhm.
kind of got invested in. It was something kind of like going back to Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker and Spider-Man. For me, I thought he was great and I was invested. I liked him. I wanted him to succeed. I wanted him to get the girl. I wanted him to do all these type of
Yeah.
things, you know?
Yeah.
And so it became the same for me. And so for me, I thought this was what they were working towards. They made good money in the other movies, but this is what they're working for. And this was the movie that really put them over the top.
Joe, you're somewhat right. Where I disagree with you is this is my number 2.
Okay.
It is the first superhero film to take stars of their own franchise films, put them together, and you're going to see this in my top 4. I'm going to repeat this phrase. It was a game changer. This movie was, I mean, it made over $1.5 billion.
Right.
No one expected it to do that. Captain America and Thor, those had been making $300-400 million. Iron Man, I think, made 600. For this to make that, blew people's minds, changed the industry, changed the future of superhero films, and it was something no one was expecting. Yes, they wanted to do their Avengers film, and it was fun and entertaining, and everybody loves seeing these characters together. They love seeing them fighting each other, fighting with each other, fighting for each other. And I mean, I know he's problematic now because of the way he's treated people he's worked with. Joss Whedon did a fantastic job with that film. He wrote a great script, and this movie just was big in a way that I don't know if any other, in a way that other superhero films hadn't been, because they'd always been about singular characters.
Don't disagree with you there.
So this was my number 2, because it really, like you pointed to, it wasn't the birth of the MCU, but it was the rapid expansion and growth. And it, it was how they could see its fuller potential, something beyond their own, really, I think, beyond their wildest imaginations. So for
I
that
agree
reason,
with you.
Avengers is number 2.
I agree with you. I don't know that I put up number 2, but I could see it being higher than what I put it. No doubt about it. No doubt
Yeah.
about it.
All right.
So that was number 6. Did you have a number 6, or is it one that we talked
It was
about already?
Wonder Woman. I'm going to give you my number 5 now, if that's all right.
Sure.
My number 5 is Black Panther. Now I have this up there. It is the first MCU and mainstream superhero film starring a black character, and really the first blockbuster. I think we'd alluded to things like Meteor Man, the Blade trilogy,
Right.
Steel.
Mm-hmm.
Those, Blades were successful. They were modest successes. The others weren't. This made over $1 billion.
Yep.
And it helped shatter the myth that, really you needed white superheroes if you were going to make money. Like, that's what people were going to come out for. And I don't
But
know
it's
if
not only that, I think it's more than that, because you had an entire black ensemble.
that's in my notes. That was my
Okay.
next point.
Sorry.
Way to jump in, Joe. Way to.
Sorry.
I object. No.
Sustained.
Yeah, it had a cast of primarily black actors, and was really viewed as a celebration of black culture, in a way that I just don't think had been portrayed on screen in the superhero genre. It was nominated for 7 Academy Awards,
Right.
including Best Picture, the
Yep.
first for a superhero film. I mean, it was groundbreaking on a number of levels, and it really, I mean, to me, one of the biggest gifts of this film, not that we haven't seen him be amazing elsewhere, but Chadwick Boseman. My
Mm-hmm.
goodness, what an incredible! I mean, the hair standing up on my arms just thinking about how incredible he was in that role, and and honestly, how awful it is that we lost him so soon.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he was amazing in that film.
Agreed.
I think that movie, uh, earned its way up there in my eyes.
Yeah.
And what it did.
And I don't disagree. It was one that I was toying with at different numbers,
Mhm.
not that high, but different numbers in there. But it ended up dropping off, and I put it down as an honorable mention.
I
Okay.
got you. Got
And you're right. I mean, it was a $2 million budget I have down here, but it made almost 1.4 billion, just
Yeah,
under
200
1.4
million, you mean?
billion.
Yeah,
Excuse me? Yeah.
200 million.
Uh, $200 million budget. Right.
Yeah, and something I want to allude to with this film and Wonder Woman, there's a whole audience out there that, as you alluded to, wants to see someone who they can identify with a little bit more, who looks more like them, who they can see themselves, you know, being that character up on screen, playing them, playing that character maybe one day. They can envision themselves as as their favorite hero, and
I
that's
think it makes it easier. I mean,
Yeah.
because
Oh, of
people
course.
envision themselves as Superman and Batman all the time, even though they may
Oh
not be
no,
by.
regardless, I
Yeah,
agree. I
yeah,
agree. It
yeah.
does.
The other
You're
thing
right.
too that it did, the other thing that it did, which I think was good, was, I mean, you had great actors and actresses in that movie. It was a
Oh
great
yeah.
story, but it also then, you got now Shang-Chi that came out,
Hmm.
um, the Eternals.
Hmm.
Um, I'm probably missing one or whatever, but I think what it shows is that the MCU is now broad based when it comes to
It's more
um,
diverse.
the universe that's there,
Yeah.
and it kind of reflects the universe, in the way that I think Stanley would have liked it to.
That
So
he
to me,
had
that's
great name.
important because I think again, Stan had his faults, right? But he saw things a certain way, and his comic books, at least in my view and everything that I've read about him and studied a little bit about him,
Mhm.
he was really a person he was a person for all, and he really
Was.
felt, maybe it was like, when I growing up in the 60s with the, what they call the hippie movement, everything was like peace and love, peace and love. And the whole point was, and people around me and everything like that, I mean, we all liked people for who they were and what they did. And I think
Right.
that was Stan's idea consistently. So to
So
me,
to
I
me,
just see this whole thing going on as being what Stan would have wanted. And so, whether you like it, don't like the movie, whatever it happens to be,
yeah,
it's basically Stan Lee, and it's taking his comic book ideas and moving them to the big screen. And for me, that's important for his legacy as well.
I
So,
agree.
all right. So, what are we up to here now?
Number
Uh,
4. What's your 4,
number
Joe?
4. My number 4, I already talked about Spider-Man
Oh,
2004.
sorry. All right. Should I
That's
give my
okay.
number 4 then?
So then you can give your number 4.
All right. So my number 4 is a film called Iron Man. It is the first film of the most successful film franchise, film endeavor in cinema history, the MCU. Robert Downey Jr., he was a risk and he was a revelation in that role. It was a terrific film that introduced not only Iron Man, but I believe Shield, brought in Nick Fury, and it hinted at the Avengers initiative and a larger universe to come. It was a slick, fun, exciting, emotional film, and it made. I don't know if it made John Favreau's career because he's had some other big hits, but I think it propelled him to another level. It was a huge success. It was the first film. Now, Marvel produced these on their own. I mean, at that point, they had been essentially leasing out their characters. Spider-Man to Sony, Fantastic Four to 20th Century Fox, the X-Men to 20th Century Fox, Daredevil, and those characters. I think Fox. Don't quote me on that one. But Marvel said, "Hey, these movies are making some good money and they're big. Let's do this. You know, let's do this ourselves." And Iron Man was their first go at it, and it was a huge hit, and it really laid the foundation for not only this cinematic universe, but kind of where the film industry has gone for the last decade plus. Now you can argue about how long superhero movies are going to go, or people have superhero fatigue. I think these films are here to stay. At maybe not at the same level, but and really propelled Marvel. And as a DC fan, I mean, and I love Marvel too, but I think a lot of people associate the word superhero with Marvel, and I think with this film, Marvel began to essentially win over a couple of generations of superhero and film fans.
Okay, Dave. So I screwed up. I probably should have used the pencil here, but when you went through your number 5 with Black Panther, and I said it was my honorable mention, we got involved in the discussion on that, and I forgot to mention to you what my number 5 was, and it was Iron Man, for the very reasons you mentioned. With respect to that, it was super significant. It really opened the door to the MCU. I remember going to the movies and watching it, and when he's building that first Iron Man thing there in that cave with the guy that's there and putting it together, and then when he comes out and starts attacking the people that had kidnapped him and all
Yeah.
of that. I mean, I was cheering in there. you
Oh,
know, and I still, and I'll probably play it right now.
okay.
I still love that piece where he says, "I'm Iron Man."
Truth is, I am Iron Man.
That to me, I mean, you see all the reporters go crazy, but everybody in the theater went crazy too. It was just fantastic,
Yeah.
and then it followed up with the Avengers Initiative, that whole thing, So to me, I agree for the very reasons you mentioned. They took a chance with Robert Downey Jr. Um,
It did.
but my understanding is that when he did the tests for that, they looked at each other and said, "This is it, Iron Man." Not Tom Cruise, right?
No.
Remember that the whole idea of Tom Cruise maybe playing him that
Yeah.
never came to fruition.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if Tom Cruise had played that part? I mean,
It's hard to see anyone but Robert Downey Jr. in that part now because he's so phenomenal and iconic in that role. I think there are a handful of, it's hard to see anyone else, or this is sort of who your collective, our collective view of that character is. That's Robert Downey Jr. Look, if it had been Tom Cruise, that would have been in our mind. I'm sure he would have been amazing. He's a magnetic, ultra superstar.
yeah,
But
but Robert
Robert
Downey
Downey
Jr.
Jr. is
is
the
Tony
guy.
Stark. I'm sorry,
He is
just Tony
Iron
Stark.
Man. I agree. He is Iron Man. So
And it made, I mean, all three movies made what?
tons of money.
2.4 billion.
Yeah.
The three
Yeah.
movies.
A lot
Nice.
of money.
I hope he got a percentage of some of them.
Oh, he did, which is why they
Yeah.
didn't love bringing him back.
That's why they didn't bring him back. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right.
Yeah.
So that was my number 5. My number 4 was Spider-Man. So I guess I think we're caught up now, right?
Yep.
So
You want to give a
we're
number
into
3,
our
Joe?
top 3.
Yep. Here we go.